What's going on, guys? It's Jake here from Chief Live Gaming. Today, a list building tactics video for you guys. I'm very excited to dive into this with you guys because the Codex supplement Traitor Legions just came out this past week for Chaos Space Marines, and that's very exciting for a lot of people. Me in particular, because I love Nurgle and I love Death Guard. I have a Death Guard 30k army, and I love to play themed Plague Marine style lists in 40k. And now I've just received this supplement that will really help that sort of style and that play style for people like myself. So what I have here is a core of what I believe to be a pretty cool sort of themed list. It's not a competitive list, but it could be adjusted to be, I think, relatively competitive in the whole scheme of things. It's not going to be top tier at a tournament most likely, but I think that you will definitely be able to hold your own against some pretty high threat lists just because of the nature of Plague Marines being so tough, being so resilient. You can really pull off some really ridiculous things with some of these command benefits, especially, which we'll go over in just a little bit. So again, this is a core. What you're looking at here is about 1750. There are a lot of adjustments to be made, a lot of things we could drop or tweak or add, and I'm going to go over some of my ideas with you guys, keeping in mind the Death Guard sort of theme. We want a lot of bodies on the table. Mortarion loves that, just crashing a wave of bodies into your opponent, and that's what I went for here. And you know, I think it's pretty fun. There are some really cool benefits again, and I want to go over them with you guys. So without further ado, what I want to do is talk to you guys about the two detachments we have here. We've got a Plague Colony here, which is the, I guess, core sort of formation within the new Death Guard Decarion. That's over here on the left. We have some spawn in the middle as our auxiliary formation. And then separate from that, we have a Combined Arms Detachment on the right, which is just basically some a sorcerer and some cultists, which will synergize with the main list, and I'm going to talk about why in just a few minutes. So I'm going to readjust the camera, and I want to go over the list very briefly with you guys, just talk about my thoughts, and then we're going to go back and sort of talk about some adjustments and some ideas that I have. I'll see you guys in just a second. Okay guys, before we dive into these formations and detachments here, I want to talk to you guys about the special bonuses that you get simply for choosing Death Guard as your sort of theme for your army. So within the Traitor Legions book, I think there's 9 Traitor Legions, and they all have a unique set of warlord traits, artifacts, and some special rules, as well as formations that are more themed towards their style of play. By choosing a Death Guard style of detachment, that's just nothing to do with any of the formations. It's just like, I'm going to play Death Guard. That's going to be basically chapter tactics. Think of it that way. You gain some benefits, and there are some restrictions. So let's go over those really quick. You cannot have any unique units other than Typhus, so you can't bring like Abaddon or Ahriman. Makes sense, right? If you can take a mark, it has to be the mark of Nergal. You have to take it, and you can't take any other marks. So you have to mark Nergal, and you can't take like Corner, Zinch, or Slaanesh. Pretty standard, that makes sense. All units that can do so must be upgraded to Veterans of the Long War at no additional points cost. So you're getting Veterans for free, which is really cool. And this ties in with another special rule, which we'll talk about in a second. Any Demon Princes must have Demon of Nergal, and Psychers from this detachment can choose to generate all their psychic powers from the Discipline of Nergal. So those are basically the bullet point restrictions of choosing this type of detachment to govern your list building. You're also gaining a couple special rules. So if you have a Death Guard detachment or formation, you gain the following special rules. Gifts of Nergal. Units that have Veterans of the Long War special rule, remember we're getting that for free, have their Fearless and Feel No Pain special rules, but reduce their initiative characteristic by 1. Typhus and units of Plague Marines are unaffected. So that's basically really good. Essentially, if you bring Chaos Space Marines, it turns them into something that's very close to a Plague Marine because they're gaining Feel No Pain. Their initiative's going down to 3, just like a Plague Marine. The interesting thing here is if you bring a Chaos Lord, you give him the Mark of Nergal because you have to. He gets Veterans of the Long War because you have to give it to him. And because he has Veterans of the Long War, he is fearless and has Feel No Pain. That's what's really cool to me. You have Chaos Lords with the Mark of Nergal and Feel No Pain. Sorcerers are going to have Feel No Pain. It's just really kind of very themed, very cool for Nurgle units. They're just going to be tougher. A couple more things here. Inexorable Advance. Units that have the Veterans of the Long War special rule have Relentless. Not that impactful, but could be handy. Lords of the Plague Host. Units of Plague Marines are troops instead of elites. So, pretty standard for this style of an army. It's just kind of handy to have it written in this way, less confusing. It also gives you the Chaos Artifacts for the Death Guard forces, which some are pretty cool, and it lets you roll on the Warlord traits for the Death Guard detachment table. So some really cool benefits. That's just for picking a Death Guard, basically chapter tactics. Now, what you're looking at right here is the Death Guard Vectorium, which is the Decurion style detachment from this book, the Traitor Legions. So there are basically a set of detachments for each Traitor Legion gets one big detachment with a bunch of formations in it, including one unique formation for each flavor of Legion. So the unique Death Guard formation is the Plague Colony. That's your core choice. You could also choose to go with the Chaos Warband. And then you need one auxiliary choice, which is, for me, I chose a unit of Chaos Spawn. Those are going to be Mark and Nergal, because I have to give them Mark and Nergal. And yeah, so that's the core of the list that I want to talk to you guys about today. I'm running out of breath because I'm talking so much, but there's a lot to talk about. We're going to try to get through it quickly, guys, but I want to give you all this information because it's really, really cool. So we've got our core of our list here. It's a Plague Colony, which is the bulk of these models here. And we have our auxiliary requirement of 3 spawn. Because we have fulfilled this detachment, we unlock more special rules. Now let's go over these really quick. You can reroll on the Death Guard Warlord traits table. If it's your primary detachment, that's pretty standard. Give you another shot at that Death Guard trait table. Units from this detachment can reroll Feel No Pain rolls of 1. That's probably the most impactful and pretty damn good rule. Rerolling Feel No Pain rolls of 1 is just one more way to keep your Plague Marines alive. It doesn't sound like much, but they're already so tough. Anything more you give them is insane. The last rule, Cloud of Flies. If an enemy unit targets a unit from this detachment that is 18 inches or more away, the target unit has stealth while this attack is resolved. So you're getting some additional kind of protection against long-range firepower, which is always nice. Not super good, but helpful. Especially if you're sitting in some kind of cover. That stealth is going to really help you out. So that's the kind of the benefit package you get for having a detachment of Death Guard. Now let's talk about the specific formations that you see in front of you here. The main one being, well, the only specific one, being the Plague Colony. So this is where the list starts to really make sense and come together and synergize. You need to bring 1 Chaos Lord or Typhus and 3 to 7 units of Plague Marines. That's the requirement for this formation. As you can see here, I have opted for a Chaos Lord on a bike, and then the full 7 units of Plague Marines. With these new formations, bringing the maximum units in the formation usually unlocks you an additional benefit, and you'll see why I opted to go for that additional benefit in just a second, because it's really good. You gain fear for this formation, which doesn't really come up that much, but could be helpful. There's also a Death Guard relic that makes your enemies take fear checks on 3d6 when they're near the person carrying it, which could be really helpful. I just want to mention that here. Keep that in mind, food for thought. Here's where the whole list starts to make sense. Innovating Pestilential Aura. Enemy models within 7 inches of any Plague Colony units at the start of the fight subphase must reduce their initiative and weapon skill by 1 for the duration of the phase. Just think about how impactful that is. We'll talk about it more in a second. I want to read you the second part of this little paragraph. If this formation includes the maximum number of units at the start of the battle, so you have all 7 units of Plague Marines, then enemy models within 7 inches of any Plague Colony unit at the start of the fight subphase must also reduce their toughness by 1 for the duration of the phase. So, holy crap. Let's recap on all our special rules here. We've got Feel No Pain rerolling 1s on all of our Plague Marines, as well as our Chaos Lord. They're part of a formation called the Plague Colony, so anytime there's close combat going on within 7 inches, it doesn't even have to be these units. Anything within 7 inches of one of these units, we've got reduced weapon skill, reduced initiative, and reduced toughness by 1 on all enemies. You as well have Blight Grenades, which are defensive grenades and can reduce attacks of your opponent. We're not really going to think about that right now. What I want to go through with you guys now is a scenario, just to illustrate how impactful this can be. So, Plague Marines are very, very hard to deal with because they are toughness 5. By increasing your strength, or increasing your toughness just by 1, it really reduces the dice mass of attacks coming in and the amount of effectiveness that your opponent, like cultists versus Plague Marines. You know, if you don't have strength 4 against toughness 5, you may as well forget it. Bringing in strength 3 against toughness 5 means you need 6s to wound, which is very difficult. Most things are strength 4 against toughness 5, meaning you'll need 5s to wound, which is pretty good as a base kind of benchmark. So let's take an example of Plague Marines versus any other unit of Space Marines, just generic Space Marines. So, because Plague Marines are toughness 5, or getting that increased toughness, they have to offset that somewhere. They do that by lowering the initiative of Plague Marines down to 3. So that means that normal Space Marines will be attacking you at initiative 4, which is before you get to attack. So that's kind of what you're paying for. You're paying for that toughness, but you have to give up that 1 initiative. Because of this Plague Colony, you're dropping the initiative of those Space Marines down to 3, meaning you're attacking at the same time. That is really cool. By reducing their weapon skill by 1, it means they still hit you on 4s, but you get to hit them on 3s. Again, that one little dice tweak from 4 to a 3, that's a lot extra hits. A lot of extra hits. You're attacking at the same time, and they're easier for you to hit. That's just from bringing, you could get those benefits by bringing a minimum squad, a minimum formation, 3 units of Plague Marines, 1 Chaos Lord. You could probably do it for like 500 to 600 points. Very easy to squeeze into any list. If you decide to go all in like I did and go all the way up to 7, you're also reducing the toughness of the enemies by 1. Now this has some interesting implications. So let's think about the same unit of Marines versus Plague Marines. Plague Marines have Plague Knives, which are poisoned 4-up weapons. Normally, when you're attacking with a base strength of 4 to a toughness of 3, which your enemy Marines are going to be toughness 3 because you're reducing their toughness, you would wound on 3s. Now that's better than your poisoned roll of 4-up, which means you get to re-roll all your failed wounds on those poisoned weapons. That is really good. Holy crap, guys. So you've got these ultra buff Plague Marines running around, being just nasty in close combat. Not necessarily something that's very powerful offensively, but the defensive stick of this formation is so high that it's very hard to uproot them on, say, an objective-based game, a relic game, any Maelstrom mission. It doesn't matter if you have AP3 because they've got the Feel No Pain rerolling ones, which is going to help. They've got the stealth rule. Put them in cover, it's going to help a lot. Each unit of 5 Plague Marines can bring 2 special weapons, which is really cool. You can get a lot of plasma, some flamers on the field, and you can just be a very well-rounded force. So that's the Plague Colony. Very cool formation. I want to talk about, I'm going to just move the tripod over. What I like to do in addition to the Plague Colony. Again, I mentioned that this is kind of a core of an army. I like to think of the Plague Colony first and then go from there. This is just another little way that I like to include some theme of the Death Guard style. I bring a Combined Arms Detachment, 1 Chaos Lord, or 1 Chaos Sorcerer, so he gets the Mark of Nergal, and then he goes on the Nergal, the new Nergal spells, which are pretty good. We have 2 units of 20 Chaos Cultists. Now those are unmarked, auto pistol only, and they're so cool because it's each block of 20 is only 90 points. Very, very cheap. Now here's the reason I do this. One of the new Death Guard relics, which I just happened to give my Chaos Lord on a bike, I'm going to read it to you guys. It's called the Poxwalker Hive. It's 20 points. And it says, at the start of each of your turns, pick a friendly unit of Chaos Cultists within 7 inches to infect with the Poxwalker virus. For the rest of the game, that unit of Chaos Cultists cannot run or make shooting attacks, but they gain Fearless and Feel No Pain. In addition, at the start of each of your following turns, return D3 slain models to every friendly unit of infected Chaos Cultists that are within 7 inches of the bearer. So, I just threw my book accidentally. Whoops. We've got Fearless Cultists. That's like the dream right there. With Feel No Pain. Sitting on a back objective. That is amazing. Very cheap investment. You could also bring an allied detachment if you just want 1 unit of 20, which is probably a little more efficient. You just bring the 1 sorcerer, you bring 1 unit of 20 as an allied detachment. That'd be like 150 points. You, at the start of the game, put this guy within 7 inches, pop that virus over on him, and then he can go do his thing, whatever he wants. And they are fearless, with Feel No Pain, sitting in cover, hopefully on an objective, just being annoying. Pretty fun thing I like to do. That's kind of the way I like to think of the template for this army. So let's back up. How far are we in? About 15 minutes. That's not terrible. There's a lot to talk about, guys. If you've stuck with this long, I'm assuming you're interested enough to want to hear all this information anyway. So what I want to talk about very briefly, hopefully as we close this out, is the kind of the weakness of running a list like this. So we've got a lot of infantry here. We've got a lot of bodies. It's very cool, very thematic. Mortarion likes that kind of waves and waves of infantry crashing into your enemy. It makes a lot of sense for Death Guard, but it's not very... There's weaknesses, right? I have a couple options in mind that are also very thematic and stick to the Death Guard sort of style. The first one is another formation, and this one came through from Traitor's Hate originally. It's called the Cult of Destruction. So this is the one where you need a Warpsmith, 1 to 3 Warpsmiths, and 3 to 5 units of Obliterators or Mutilators. Basically, the gist of it is you bring a Warpsmith with some Obliterators. Once per turn, he can choose a unit within 8 inches from the formation, and they get to shoot twice if they're Obliterators, or they get to attack twice if they're Mutilators. I like to bring Nurgle marked Obliterators. You bring 1 unit of 3, and then 2 singles to fulfill the formation. You put the Warpsmith with those 3 obliterators. Every turn they get to fire twice. That is pretty handy. You've got multi-melta availability, you've got las cannon availability. If they decide to come at you in combat or you want to get up there, you've got heavy flamers, twin link flamers, plasma cannons, you've got all kinds of good stuff there. Obliterators are awesome. Marker Nurgle obliterators are even better. So that's kind of the first option. The second option will depend on your collection. So I want you guys to think about your collection right now and what kind of tanks or heavy support options you might have. Maybe you have a Sikaran, a Spartan, some Predators. Try to find a way to fit those in, whether or not it's by bringing an allied detachment, a combined arms, or another formation. You should try to incorporate some of those to this core outline. Those are my suggestions. Think about what you guys have in your collection and go from there. So, I hope this has been interesting and or helpful for you guys. I really enjoy this style of an army. I'm very excited to develop it further. I have a couple more ideas for Nurgle themed armies in the future using some of these formations, some Traitors Hate goodness. But this is kind of the most thematic one that originally came to mind using the Plague Colony. So let me know what you guys think of the list, if you have any modifications, if you have your own sort of Death Guard style list that you've come up with. Let me know what they are down in the comments. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye now.